All right, I've got 5 o'clock, so I'll call this work session of the Enterprise City Council to order at 4 o'clock instead of our normal 5 o'clock. So let the record show that all 5 members of the council are present and accounted for. As you all know, we're here early today to discuss our quarterly goals, which fall in line with our one-year goal, which falls in line with our 2025 vision, and so on. So we're going to spend the first 45 minutes to an hour focusing on that, revisiting Q1 briefly, and then talking about our second quarter so that we can get us to the halfway point of the year on track to meet our annual goals. So y'all should have, Jonathan just passed out this 2-pager. Does everybody have it? It says City of Enterprise Strategic Plan in 2023 at the top. All right, so this is what we're going to go by. If you will, turn to the last page. We'll briefly review our first quarter. These were our first quarter goals. Schedule a meeting with SEARP, which is Southeast Alabama Regional Planning and Development Commission, about public transportation. So we've done that. Sonia and I sat in with a meeting with staff. We updated y'all on that last meeting. Y'all stop me if y'all want to stop on any of these, but this is really just a review. So brief the council on the animal control shelter. They scheduled a meeting, so we did this, Jonathan. We gave them some action items. We're waiting on them to return to us, right?
We did. We're waiting on, if you remember, Bill Brooks was, who's with the SOS Animal Shelter, was at our strategic planning meeting and raised this as a topic. I think a few of you said that maybe you ran on a platform that dealt with the no-kill topic. So we engaged with Bill Brooks and members from the SOS Animal Shelter on, how big the problem is for the city, what alternatives might look like. We're waiting on some information back from them before we can really come up with alternative courses of action for the city to consider.
All right. So I believe we have an action item on the agenda to engage a firm for wayfinding signage, which we got that proposal last council meeting, correct?
We did. And I think it's on your agenda tonight,
right.
As well as the next item.
So to engage expert legal authority on Land Bank Redevelopment Authority. So we've got a proposal in our package tonight that we're going to authorize to be executed. So both of those items will be checked off after tonight. Council will work with the fire chief to consider downtown early warning measures. So our goal for the first quarter was to have an initial briefing from Chief Davis, which he did in one of our recent meetings, might have been our last meeting, where we talked about monitoring. Well, we talked about everything from doing nothing to all the way to sprinkler systems. We can talk about our next steps here in a minute when we get to that. Start construction on 3B paving project. That is currently underway, correct?
Correct.
Bid phase 2 PV Park project. The task order has been issued. So that item is done. Airport spec building, we were to have the design complete. That is done. It's out to bid, right?
It is.
Then the City Hall bid award, a Q1 goal was to have it awarded. So far have chosen not to award that, or recommendation of staff. So we can talk about next steps here in a minute, but it's going to involve the Public Building Authority, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that was just a brief review of Q1, just to get everybody up to speed. So now, y'all know the drill. We've got these 2023 goals. We're one quarter into the year. We're going to go down. These are the goals we've given the staff to complete for the year. I think the most efficient thing that's been working is that we ask staff, what needs to be completed in the second quarter in order to keep us on track to meet our annual goals. So, I'll just throw this out to staff. Let them offer a suggestion to keep us on track, and then we'll stop them if we don't think that's a good idea. But it does sound like we've got everything pretty well under control here. So, Jonathan, tell us about the comprehensive plan being complete.
So the last I talked to staff about that. I think we're on track, maybe as a stretch Q2 goal. So meaning that I think it will be done by June, but it may dip into July, depending on if the council approves the draft.
So not just a milestone in this, we're going to actually set the entire goal as a Q2 goal,
Yes.
completion of that in Q2. All right. So we've already scheduled a meeting with SERP and DC about the public transportation. So what's a logical next step on this goal to provide public transportation?
So I think we need to firm a cost proposal from the Regional Planning Commission, and then work that into our budget in Q3. So in other words,
So in Q2, get a cost proposal back so that our Q3 goal is to work it into the budget.
correct.
Receive cost proposal. So that. All right. So this is to be on track for FY24 onboarding. This is a paraphrasing of a bigger goal having to do with some HR goals, right?
It is. It's so we talked about. I think last year we talked about multiple platforms within the NeoGov system for our HR department, and one of those was onboarding. So in other words, when we take in new personnel here at the city, that they have a consistent look and feel of what's expected of the city within their department. They have certain curriculum items that they must complete to check, hey, we've been onboarded by the city. That has a cost associated with it. And so we opted not to implement all phases. So last year we did the training module within NeoGov. That's been underway, and we funded that in last year's budget. This year for FY24, we would look to add that into our budget for FY24. So I think that would be a Q3 goal if the council approves it in the budget.
Yep. All right. So no action items for Q2 on that.
No,
Okay. 5-year capital plan, same story, right?
it is.
All right. Brief the council on animal control shelter. We've briefly talked about that. So what's our Q2?
I would say we have another meeting with animal groups that in town, stakeholders within that advocate for a no-kill solution, and get the data that they have and present options to the council to consider.
So request presentation of the information we've already requested.
Correct.
Ask them to bring that back to us in Q2. All right. Engage firm for waste finding signage. So we're gonna, assuming we approve that tonight, we're gonna engage with them. So what's a practical Q2 kind of milestone by the end of June? Where do we need to be on this project?
I think it would be reasonable to have them come in and present, a plan for wayfinding signage within the city of Enterprise, and potentially identify a rough cost to implement that.
And maybe a schedule. Because usually
so
don't you kind of take that down in phases?
Yeah, I believe there'd be multiple courses of action, so it depends on how ornate you want the signs to be. So you can buy really expensive signs or less expensive
Which
signs.
we can probably ask for like a good, better, best.
I think they're gonna do that. So I think they would show the different options, A, B, and C of types of signs, and then those costs would be associated. So if you went with the high end signs all throughout town, this would be your cost. If you went with the low end in certain areas and had a mix or match approach, I think they present all of that.
Okay. And that can happen in Q2.
I believe it can. Yes, sir.
All right. Engage expert legal authority on Land Bank Redevelopment Authority. We're approving that engagement tonight. So what's a good milestone to be at by the end of June?
So again, I would ask them to, the firm that you would be approving tonight, if you approve it, Hand Arundel, I would ask them to come in, brief the council on what options you have statutorily. So in other words, does Coffee County qualify and the City of Enterprise qualify for a land bank? If so, based on that, what does it take to implement that? Is there a cost associated with it? And then the same for the redevelopment authority. Under what statute can the City of Enterprise, if the City of Enterprise can do that, what statute would that be under? How many board members? What costs are associated with it? What are the pros and cons? And present that in Q2.
Everybody good with that? All right, so the council will work with the fire chief to consider downtown early warning measures. I guess this is going to be more on us of kind of next steps on this. You want to share your thoughts first, Jonathan? We'll maybe go around the room.
I mean, one thing that I think could be done is perhaps a stakeholder meeting. Oh,
he's coming.
I didn't know he was here yet.
A stakeholder meeting.
Stakeholder meeting. I love it.
Which would be, I assume, the downtown merchants, maybe Maria.
I think that would be an excellent start. In addition, some of the information that I gave you previously, I can send a little bit additional if that's beneficial to you. And then, as you said before, start a discussion and see what would be the most effective way to protect what we have and hopefully prevent what we saw last year.
So, council, now would be a good time to, I don't think we shared our thoughts on this last time. Of course, Greg, you've got a unique perspective on this, being a downtown merchant. I mean,
so what we're planning to do, and have already put an order in for, is to have our alarm company, even though we're not putting a full-blown fire alarm system in there, we're having them add a smoke detector that's tied to our alarm system for a warning, not for insurance purposes, not for regulatory purposes, but just adding that to our existing system, because we're not under any direct requirement to put a fire alarm in our business, but it would help tremendously if smoke was detected to go ahead and make that phone call as if it was like a home.
Have you done any
alarm
homework
system.
on what kind of cost that's adding to your
It doesn't add anything to my monthly bill. It's just
so your
the cost of the
monitoring is the
actual
same.
design.
If you're already getting burglar monitoring, you just got to have the device, I assume, which can't be terribly expensive, is it?
I was told no, not for this type, because this is what he's doing is exactly what I would like to see. Obviously, if it's mandatory, it's a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
In most of the buildings downtown, especially, it's not mandatory by code.
But we can make it mandatory by ordinance, right?
Well, do they all have a burglar alarm system?
No, absolutely not.
So yeah, if you're going from 0 to this, then that's
of course
a different than what. If you're already going to burglar monitor, go into fire monitoring is not a big leap, right?
That is my understanding.
But if you got to do both, that's more expensive.
Yeah, I mean
your upfront cost, obviously, and then
your ongoing.
My current burglar alarm system is roughly $500 a year. That's what my cost is on it. So it is an expense, but it's not
$45
to me for what I'm getting for it is not. But I can't make that decision. Well, I guess we can make that decision, but I don't like making those kind of decisions for other businesses.
Yeah.
If we don't, unless we feel there's a direct need to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's what we're discussing about it. Is it the proper role of the Enterprise City Council to come in on? Is there some compelling public interest for the council to intervene in downtown? Because of the,
but it's definitely a much cheaper option than putting a full-blown fire alarm system in.
Well, and not to mention a full-blown fire suppression system.
Of course,
right.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, we're just taking
I have that
probably the
perspective
first
as well.
step around the.
I have that perspective as well.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And I think, as we discussed last time, the two of the most cost-efficient and effective would be, again, as we discussed, the Knox boxes, which that's a one-time purchase, and then of course any kind of smoke detection that we can get to give us early warning. The quicker we're alerted, the better the outcome's going to be.
So,
can you tell me again? I know we talked about the Knox box, but my mind is blank. What is that?
Knox box is you would purchase them. So the Enterprise Fire Department has a key. If you purchase a Knox box, I approve it. it gets sent to you, or if you're doing new construction, it gets sent to
Gotcha.
your builder.
I remember now.
And it comes to you open because you don't have control over it. You have it mounted. You would call us, say, hey, bring your key. We're going to put a key in here for access to your building. And then we lock it in there along with any information that you might want to place in there, such as contact information, which hopefully we already have from our pre-fire program.
Just for my knowledge, Knox, N-O-X, is that the
KNOX.
K-N-O-X? Okay.
Yes.
Knox
And
Box.
their information is in Knoxbox, KNOXBOX.com.
Okay.
It's a little black box with a little red reflector on it.
They come in different colors. I have to actually have a picture in mind.
Yeah.
But
So-
it just looks like a small armored box.
So, obviously, I think at some point there will have to be a policy level decision of whether we want to strongly encourage this or up to require it. But is anybody opposed to at least moving forward with a stakeholder discussion in the second
I think
quarter?
we definitely need to have that.
Yeah.
Here, to hear this exactly from the chief, and then we can make that conscious decision on it.
Yeah.
So I guess I have a question. We start making it a mandatory thing. Does that move in any kind of regulatory requirements that it becomes a fire alarm system versus a burglar alarm system with a fire? Because we can suggest the smoke detector on a burglar system, but when it becomes regulatory, does that move into
And that
another
goes
realm?
to just the wording of the ordinance, right? Like
That's correct.
Just the definitions we use.
Because you can do, obviously, either or. I would have nothing to do with the burglar
Okay.
system side of that. And that's not something that you would necessarily have to, like we have the codes that you just upgraded, right? These businesses that work like yours, it's not mandatory, right? On that level, by no means. If you were to make that decision, you can simply provide that directive to me by an ordinance of your decision. And then when it comes through the office, engineering or our own, obviously, I thought he was going to be looking at me. That gets put in on either plans on new construction or the approval process for accepting when we're doing the walkthrough for the CO.
Or the initiation, I assume, a business license.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be,
And you would also have to make a decision. Okay, do we? Right now we're talking about Main Street. Is that going to be when we initiate inspections now, which is currently the plan is we want to start moving forward with kind of a more of an annual thing and high risk. I've told you that. That's not to be punitive in any way. That's to be informative and hopefully help if we see something that somebody else doesn't. But currently, we only do those inspections in a building. If it has changed ownership, if it's changing classification, you would have to decide whether this is we want you to do it all or we want it to continue down that road. If that's the case, you have some businesses that have been and hopefully will be there without change for years to come. So that's something else that we would have to have a discussion about.
Yeah. Or are we going to go knocking on doors of existing businesses that will be ongoing for, to your point, years to come, and make them bring to code without some sort of triggering event, just the passage of an ordinance? Or where now most of these code things, there's got to be a triggering event, such as change of address, change of business, change of use. There's some sort of triggering event,
Right.
Not just you going down there and knocking on the door.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
What we're discussing too is much more economical on the business owner than making them to have a sprinkler system or
Absolutely.
whatever.
100%, Council.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to basically put an end to it, sprinkler systems everywhere. But the cost of that is
Well,
It would put businesses out.
What we're talking about now is,
Monitoring.
monitoring is
Yes,
still an excellent idea, I think, but we don't want to put a burden on the business owner.
correct.
Okay. Well, it sounds like everybody's on board with just having a good, robust stakeholder discussion, which would primarily be yourself and the downtown merchants. And I think, to be clear, we're talking about just downtown primarily because these businesses are adjoined. They have community or party walls that are being shared. So if one building catches on fire, it now becomes a public issue, and that there's multiple buildings on fire, as opposed to a freestanding structure. Typically those can be much more easily contained to one building.
What? Yeah, absolutely. And things
That's
like
why we're picking on
yes.
downtown.
And I think they're aware of that. I before I briefed you guys, the council at the last meeting, I had an excellent talk with the downtown group. So
That's what I was going to ask you. What's the buzz about it so far with you?
respectfully, everybody's been like, "This is great. We're glad you came." But after I left, and they were like, "I don't know how much it cost." They may have had a completely different
Right.
feeling.
And I think that
I don't know.
before the stakeholder meeting, I think we need to get that information, because that's that's the first thing I'd want to know is, okay, this sounds great, at what cost? So obviously if you already have monitoring, that's going to be one answer.
Sure.
If you don't have any sort of monitoring, primarily burglar monitoring, then it's going to be an entirely different.
Yes.
So okay.
No, I like what Greg's doing, though. He's taking that initiative, putting it in the fire smoke detector, which if I had a business downtown, I'd want to protect it at all costs.
And there was one or two businesses during that meeting that they had just done the same thing.
Yeah.
So I was very happy to hear that, and hopefully that's a positive.
So
Yeah.
we should have some actual receipts of what this type of stuff costs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we can probably invite some vendors to come present. Of course, I mean, we don't want to show favorites or anything, but okay.
I stopped short of that at the downtown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was hoping to get a better understanding of how much that would cost, even if it was a new system, because they have, and again, it's out of my ballpark. I'm not the tech guy, but they have wireless systems as well as wired systems. If it's not mandatory, there's nothing stopping them from utilizing a less expensive system, so long as it meets the directive of what you would put forward.
Right. And I'm sure there's plenty of standards out there that we can enumerate in the code. Okay. All right. Sounds good. We'll move on. I'll try to wordsmith that one on what a stakeholder discussion looks like. 3B paving project, it's underway, so barring some sort of disaster, that should be complete this year, right?
I think it should be done in Q2.
So Q2 goal. All right. Phase 2 PV Park project.
So the task order was approved at the last council meeting. I would suggest a Q2 goal of approval to seek bids. So approval to seek bids from the council.
Approval to seek bids. All right, and so if we seek bids in Q2, we would probably award a bid in Q3, assuming that's acceptable and be under construction this year. All right. Budget sidewalk projects FY24, that's going to be a Q3 item, right?
Yes, sir.
City Hall under construction. I know we've got some project updates coming in the next hour. Do we want to? Well, I mean, we might as well set a Q2 goal. We may be putting the cart before the horse here, but go ahead.
So the newly appointed Public Building Authority, one goal I think in Q2 that would be attainable would be to have them convene maybe more than once and come up with a recommendation back to the council on how to proceed with City Hall.
All right. Everybody good with that?
Mhm.
Recreation maintenance building in design phase.
So this is something that Barry Mott has been working with Whaley on. I believe that we have a rough design of that we did. Did you do that, Barry, in-house? Yeah. So we've kind of already have a design, and we're looking to find out right now within the current scope of the contract if we can add that into the current scope of the contract. So I'd say a Q2 goal would be a decision point on that to the council, whether or not to proceed with building the maintenance building. Recommendation to council.
So kind of a go, no go in Q2.
Correct.
All right. Everybody good with that? Wastewater treatment plant consultant selected and construction started.
Okay. So in the wastewater treatment consultant, I think in Q2, hopefully we'll be able to select a consultant. I don't think that we'll have construction started, but I think we can select a consultant in Q2.
So roughly half of that. Q2 consultant selected. All right. Everybody good? Pickleball under construction.
Okay. I'd say the Q2 would be award a bid in Q2. Q2 goal for that.
So if we award it in Q2, it would very likely be under construction in Q3.
Very likely.
What do y'all you think that's feasible to complete? If that happens, if they start construction in Q3, would they complete it this year? Spec building, airport under construction.
I think that could be a Q2 goal to have it under construction.
Oh, wow.
I think we're scheduled for bid openings in May. So assuming that the bids come in within the budget and you authorize that, I think that's very reasonable to start construction in Q2.
And that's being done under the Power South Co-op program.
It is.
The spec program. All right, then the industrial park building designed is a annual goal to have it designed. So
it is,
and
if we have time, I'd make a recommendation that we look at it going into executive session. There's some things I'd like to discuss with the council regarding economic development in the spec building program that I wanted to make you aware of.
Okay. City codes. Let me add that. Let's see.
So, to my knowledge, that was completed, I think, at the last council meeting. We have any others that are outstanding? Yeah.
So, what would be a Q2 goal on subdivision regulations?
I think that's part of the comprehensive plan, is it not?
Oh, okay. So city codes, if we'll lump that under comprehensive plan, the city codes are complete.
That's right. And those have a trigger date in October. Is that right? October 1. So going into the next FY is when the implementation of those codes begin.
Have we started informally talking about that with our local builders on inspections? Right. Okay. All right, transportation plan.
Okay, so the transportation plan, as you remember, and it was briefed by the group doing our comprehensive plan, KPS, they looked at a lot of things. In the transportation thing, I think you remember the connector roads probably most prominently. So that will be done as part of the comprehensive plan. Within this, what I would suggest is that assuming that the comprehensive plan is complete in Q2, I would suggest engaging a firm, and my recommendation would be to stay with the same firm that we're using in this to prioritize what comes out of the comprehensive plan, and then pick one or two of those projects to go into like a deeper dive. Maybe fund the preliminary engineering or due diligence on the particular routes and identify a more specific route. If you remember those maps, it just said kind of broadly here, or maybe we want to park there, or a walking trail here. And it didn't really get into specifics, and they don't know what they don't know about what's on the ground there.
Yeah, they didn't send survey crews out there and shoot grades.
That's right. So I think within that, maybe a Q2 kind of stretch goal. It may have to go into Q3 depending on when the comprehensive plan is turned in and approved by the council, but would be to prioritize, transportation, parks, whatever those are in there, pedestrian routes, and pick a couple to do a further dive, which will mean that we will need to spend additional money to look at those routes so that we'll have kind of a shovel-ready plan if funds become available or you decide to act on them. We won't always be starting at square one. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're doing this big, broad, general plan now, saying this is what we want our community to be, and then we're going to start breaking this down and prioritizing and getting some actual shovel-ready projects, so that as we're like right now, we've got shovels in the ground right now. We're building rec centers, but we need to be getting additional projects for the future up on the shelf so that we can continue to take that next step towards our comprehensive plan.
That's right, and it may be 5 weeks, it may be 5 years before we have the funding available or funding approved from the council to do those projects, but typically the priorities won't change. That's still be your number one priority to get done for a variety of reasons.
And go into how this type of process is so important, especially on our state and federal agendas, to have those projects not only identified but actually shovel ready.
Yeah, so I think the funding that we got from COVID funds that were released through the 2 rounds is a very good example. So I've heard this council use the term, we're looking, what is it, to fix what's the term, solution?
The solution
sort of problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a lot like what we've been doing over the last few years when we say, oh, well, here's a good idea, let's go fund that, and we start from square one. Well, if we had a shovel-ready project or multiple shovel-ready projects when those funds came down, we would have that would have been in the mix for what those in the last round. It was roughly $6.1 million that was delivered to the city. We said, hey, water and sewer we know are going to be funded. Let's give that to water and sewer. And fortunately, we had water and sewer projects, but they still weren't shovel ready. We still had to do the analysis, pay engineers to go out and do the design. And we just talked about one of those on the wastewater treatment that we're still in the process of down selecting to a firm to do that. If we had those plans ready, we could have had a more broad discussion about how should we use that $6.1 million. And that would be the difference in kind of good to great, in my opinion. We didn't do anything wrong, but we could have been better prepared for those kind of circumstances. Or when we go after grants, we're not going after grants just because it's a good idea for a grant. We're able to tailor the grant very specifically to going after a project maybe we don't have 100% of the funding for, but we could come up with a 20% match.
Everybody understand that process? Everybody comfortable with moving forward with that? All right, so update police staffing with next steps. It's just obviously an ongoing conversation.
It is. So, and we're not unique in that. It's a nationwide problem for folks to recruit and retain law enforcement professionals. It's just a tough environment. And, I know Chief Moore's in the back. He may come up and give you some numbers about how we've been doing on our progression with that. But I will say that I would remind the council that it is critical, in my opinion, to move forward with City Hall renovations in some form or fashion, because that workplace environment is a critical component of how we recruit and retain law enforcement professionals. Where they go to work every day, they have to feel like, they're valued and that they've got a good place to be in a good working environment to do business. So, Chief, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
So just kind of give you all an oversight, like you said, it is a national problem. Obviously, everybody's having the same. There's a couple departments that are doing quite well. A lot of the smaller departments can pay a little bit more. Dothan is not having any problems hiring, recruiting, retention. Retention's a little bit tough on them, I think. And Troy is fully staffed when I talked to Chief Barr about it. But just kind of give you an outlook of what we've had since I've taken over in June, July of 2020. We've had 210 applications. Out of that 210, 20 were hired. Out of that 20, 16 are still employed. So out of 210 in 2.5 years, we have 16 good applicants out of that. Since that time also, we've had 19 certified officers that left us. 4 of them terminated. 4 retired, 3 moved and got out of law enforcement, so they're not even in law enforcement anymore. 4 went other departments. They went to the state troopers, Department of Corrections for a kind of a Monday through Friday job. 1 went to, I think 2 went to state troopers. Yeah, and then the other one went to Dothan. We just recently lost our first one to Dothan. So then we've had 1 deceased, 2 individuals went active duty Army, and then 1 went into a school teaching job around here. So the ones that were leaving aren't necessarily leaving for, they're not running to Dothan or Troy or anything else. We've changed our application process. We've changed the way we do the PT test, and that's mainly the way that either they don't show up for the PT test or they fail the PT test when they first get there. There's certain departments in the nation that have minimized those standards of running PT, and it's come back to get them pretty hard. So standards can't be dropped. Our application process is lengthy and it's expensive, but it's like you've always heard the adage, if you spend $3 million in a lawsuit later on, or you spend $3,000 on one person now, I think we can do the math and say we're pretty well where we need to be. And then I think that's about it. Like I said, 210. Any questions on that?
So is my math correct that that's a net -3?
Yes.
So 16 new, 19 down.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sounds like the primary action item is the facility right now, and obviously just continuing to have this discussion.
We've gotten plenty of equipment that helps us. Like I said, the issue is not we have manpower now, but I've got guys that are working, men and women working a lot of overtime hours. There's a lot of overtime that I've mandated to be worked, like the car sale, stuff like that. So there's individuals working 12 to 16 hours to make up where we should have more people. The speed signs, the reason why I've requested the speed signs is so I can put my manpower where we need it the most. Any other aspects of the police department to, remodeling to equipment, that's what we're requesting, is to get the best assets out there whenever we're having other issues. So.
All right. Complete southern bypass lighting is a 2023 goal.
Yeah, I can get. So I spoke with Alabama Power. I hadn't had an update in a few months, and wanted to make sure that I had the best information. So I spoke with them this afternoon. Really, what we're waiting on right now is approval for a permit that Alabama Power has submitted to ALDOT, called a photometric study. And right now, I think the agreement that we signed with the power company called for 72 lights, and it would go from 167 south to 27 south over near the Good to Go. So, that they have a lumen study that go within that photometric, how many lumens the lights put off. And I think that's what we're waiting on right now with ALDOT, according to the power company. Once that's complete, they will confirm, if it was 72 versus 76 poles or the right bulbs are in it, and they'll place that order, and then they'll move forward with implementation. So that's the hurdle that we're at right now, is an issue with ALDOT.
Any reason to believe that we won't meet that goal of getting that project in this year?
No, I hope not. It's been about a year now since we approved the agreement.
Wow, I didn't realize it'd been that long. All right, adopted property maintenance code, that is complete, correct?
It has been.
Go live with new city website and app.
So we're still looking at a June-July timeframe with that.
So that's maybe a stretch goal, but a Q2 goal.
I would say so.
All right. City process policy on web, that can't be done until the website's up, right?
Yeah, and moreover, we're in the process in June now of switching over our Munis system and upgrading it. And I think we've talked about that and how maybe for a few days the system might be offline. It really makes no sense to do that on the back end until we have the new system live. So I would say at best that needs to be a Q3, Q4 kind of goal.
Gotcha. All right, and there were two issues that we added in the first quarter here. Business license fixes is kind of a repeat of last year. As we continue to massage the new business license ordinance, there's some clarifications and potential addressing of one additional. Do we want to take that up in Q3, or is that Q2, or is that a better Q3 discussion?
I think Q3 would give more time to find any other issues that have come up.
Okay.
Just my opinion, but there's no need to rush it because it doesn't need to be implemented until next January.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have time, and I think if there are any other issues that come up over the next quarter, we shouldn't try to address all of them early on because we may find additional issues.
Gotcha. Joint City Water GIS project. So tell us about this. I don't think we've talked about this as a council.
So I think Councilman Goolsby and Mayor Cooper in our water meetings have heard about the need for GIS mapping of our water system. Subsequently, Barry Mott and his staff have been pushing to get our stormwater, wastewater systems mapped for GIS as well. So on some streets, obviously water and sewer exist in tandem, and it would make a lot of sense to partner. In some instances, where the county where the city water system extends out beyond the city limits, but our sewer does not, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to partner. And then in some areas of the city, we don't have sewer. But we have water. So I think some partnership between the city waterworks board and the city council would make a lot of sense to do this. And instead of hiring two firms to do it independently, try to partner and fund one firm to do that. So, a Q2 goal, in my opinion, would be to get proposals from firms that could do this and get a cost and present that to the city council to gauge your appetite, as well as to the water board and gauge their appetite.
And I would assume that would be a cost and probably a schedule. That this would it be a multi-year project or?
Yeah, really that would be cost driven, and I would say based on just some swag numbers that we tossed around that this would be something I would envision being implemented over 2 or 3 years. Is that, Barry? Is that your kind of feeling? 2 or 3. So, and with that, Barry, do you want to come up and talk about some of the benefits for the citizens, as well as maybe explain a little bit about the GIS system and how other communities have used that to their advantage?
So, GIS system will give us, multiple facets of a tool to use. One, just knowing where our utilities are. When someone says, "Hey, I've got this piece of property. Do you have water or sewer?" It'd be nice to be able to click on that. But not only in the office, but that's something that some cities provide to their customers on their web base. So you can go into some cities and you can actually click on your property and they'll show the size sewer they have out there. They'll show the water line. Sometimes they color code it by pressure, which helps the fire department as well. But a lot of things that we have a lot of them are on paper and pieces of parts, and put all this together into one database that we can get our hands back on. And some of the things, like we worked in Hurricane Michael in the event of an emergency, you're trying to find out how to cut off water and how to get a system back up. If you don't have these things mapped in a way that you've got a geogrid so you can put your hands directly on where that fire hydrant or where that valve is, sometimes you can't find it. So it'd be helpful for staff. It'd be helpful for us to develop a plan for, sometimes we have a developer, they'll come in and say, "We're looking at doing this or this subdivision. Can you handle this much sewer, or can you get that all the way to the plant?" Well, right now we have to back up, and each one of them we have to do an independent study. Where part of this GIS system could be rolled into some kind of capacity analysis to determine how much capacity do we have in these lines between here and there. So it'll help us make more educated decisions as we manage our utility systems. And I'll also see the benefit for the residents as well. to be able to log in and see where our water and our sewer, storm, all that stuff is logged into one database.
So obviously a large upfront investment, but it would pay dividends into perpetuity.
And I've done a couple of GIS systems like this through my career, and a lot of data gathering, which is a lot of upfront, putting people in the field with GPS equipment, actually surveying those points, and then coming back and getting those things input into a system where we code those right on different layers. We have a water system on one layer and sewer on one. So as we get an economic developer comes in and says, hey, I need the water, sewer, storm in this particular area, you can just basically snapshot that GIS and send it to them or give them a login where they can go in and view it. They can't edit the points, but they can log in and see it for themselves. It's just a tool that's just invaluable, in my opinion, for us to have, to get off of. We have a lot of people that have been here for a long period of time and know a lot about our systems, water, sewer, and storm, but getting those things down for future generations that we have that information available to us. So one of the things that we are asking as we're getting new subdivisions come in, we're asking for actually CAD as-built drawings for the subdivision. So we're getting the data for all the stuff that's currently under construction in the city. So we've got that data.
That can be just bolted.
And that could just be dumped into the database. We may want to verify 2 or 3 points and just make sure that it all lines up, that it's on the same datum. But for all the current stuff that we have and the stuff that we're requiring going forward, we're getting that information. The issue comes in is the stuff that's been here, the stuff that's currently in the system. The only way to get that is to send people out in the field and shoot those with GPS equipment, and then dump that into some kind of a database to ultimately turns into GIS. And the good thing about GIS too is you're talking about maintenance and you're talking about asset management. How many times have we had sewer overflows in this area? How many times have we had to go out to that particular fire hydrant? How many times have we worked on that water line? All that stuff gets queued to a entity. So when you say, hey, we worked on this line, you tag that to the entity description in the GIS, and you can create work orders. You can create history of how much we've worked on something. How old is that line? When was it installed? It becomes an intelligent database for our asset management. So even today, we have several companies in town doing fiber optic and cable television installation. We had an issue even today where we were out there and they plunged they bored right through one of our water services on a road that we paved, probably in phase 1 or phase 2, but pulled the whole service out of the line, right? So we're having to send out people ahead of that to go relocate these lines where all these services are, where if we could do all that on the front end as we go through, we would have basically a mapping system. We could actually provide that to these utility companies to say, here is our system. You can verify, but to the best of our knowledge, this is what we have, and please protect it. If you were to damage that, that'll be your responsibility to fix it. So we're really, in my opinion, somewhat chasing our tail in some instances where we're trying to cover in some of these situations. This will give us a tool to be more proactive, to actually know what we have out there and to come up with a capital program to not just know what we have, but to maintain these systems so that we don't get caught in a situation where we got to pay the piper because something happens at one day. We could say, well, we know that these things for the next 10 years, let's go ahead and figure out what that would be. And staff can develop a plan for you to look at and maybe adopt to maintain and keep these systems up and running.
And Eugene, you think the water board
Definitely.
is on board with this? Okay.
We have one thing I'd mention to you. When we drove the roads originally, everything that the van could see, they had data points on there, and we had data we could have pulled out at that time. So one of the things we could do is, when I'm talking to Jonathan, is let us go through a selection process for getting somebody on board, because we may have capabilities of going back to some of those points, even though they're 3 or 4 years old. It may get 90% of what the van saw, at least stormwater along the roadways. But we might be able to do some things that would be cost effective for some tools that we've already paid for.
All right. Sounds good. Well, that's the end of the list. Does anybody have any? Remember, the idea here is that we try to kind of load the cart every 3 months.
Let me ask you a question, please. Back some time ago, we briefly discussed the property where Old Junior was on College Street.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I brought up the fact that I personally and the neighborhood would like to see that remain a park. And we discussed the possibility of building just some kind of small building on there that's very economical for clubs, et cetera, to use as a meeting room. And then the police department had some stuff on the back of the park that they could continue to use. And we just kind of threw that around, but nothing was ever decided on it. And I was wondering if we could fit that in somewhere.
I mean, Jonathan, you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, we could certainly, try to engage somebody, whether or not it's through our MSA, like Poly, or an other firm. The first thought I had was maybe wait until our comprehensive plan is done to show, because I think one of those areas in and around that, if I recall, a green dot was somewhere in the downtown area, maybe for a park. And so if we, if that's the case, then, if you all decide that that's a priority, then it becomes one of the next phases that we can go ahead and pull down and down select in with our comprehensive plan. But I mean, in the meantime, I mean, we can start that process to, if you all want to start looking at the park.
Would you? I mean, we're moving. The comprehensive plan's rapidly coming. I mean, you think would be okay with you if we waited until we got that comprehensive plan?
I
Okay.
just don't want it to get lost.
Well, I'll add it to the future consideration. Let's see, Old Junior property.
Councilman, did you say you were going to add that to?
Yeah, I might
Future.
add it to the issues added for future consideration so it doesn't get lost.
Okay.
Old Junior property.
And that's on College Street, Councilman Goolsby?
Yeah, he said the old Junior property. Old Junior property on College Street. Yeah, and to that point, if there's some things that come up that y'all don't want to get lost in the shuffle, we've got this holding spot to throw those so that when we come back to our quarterly or annual goals, we can make sure they get that. Like I was saying, the whole idea here is that we load the cart up every 3 months and we attempt not to throw any more rocks in the wagon for the next few months. Give staff their space. And I think we've all seen how effective it's been when we do that. They by and large have been getting a lot of stuff done. Jonathan has obviously spoken for the staff tonight and said we can do a lot more in the second quarter. This is a lot of stuff we just threw on them. So is there anything else that y'all want to discuss? I won't say forever hold your peace, but at least try to hold it to yourself for the next 3 months. Anything else before we move on? I mean, I think we got a good plan here to stay on track. All right, let's quickly move over to the agenda for tonight's meeting. So there was one addition, right? The parade or carnival permit, I guess, was the only addition. So other than that permit we're going to address tonight, this should be what we received on Friday, both posted to the website and sent to us in emails. So we'll have roll call, prayer and pledge of allegiance, approval of the agenda, then the consent agenda, which is the minutes from work session and meeting from March 21st, accounts payable A and B, which are in detail in our packets, contract billings for the sewer relocation on 167, Beasley's billings for the multi-purpose recreational complex over at the junior college, then PV's got some engineering services for both of those projects, and the KPS group is working on the zoning map and the contract planning services. I assume that's our comprehensive plan.
It is. Yes, sir.
All right, police department's got some travel requests and the permit request from O'Neill Boswell for the Spring Festival that I referenced earlier. It comes right after that. Any
Councilman, I do have a question for you. Just
Okay.
we put this on here as an abundance of caution, but
Right.
we had some questions within the staff, and because of the timing of it, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we got it on the agenda. But in the future, if we have these events, I know as they come up, we can't find any statutory reason in the code or anything else that like an event like this would come before the council on private property. Is it the wish of the council that we continue to bring these type of events before you for approval, or is this something that you would prefer us to handle administratively?
Scotty, what do you think?
I think they can handle it administratively between the mayor and the staff, and they're getting the input, whether it's fire or police.
Greg, you got any issues with that?
I don't.
I mean, they still have to obtain a business license or and permit. Fire chief went out and inspected. That's why I was talking.
Yeah, the big concern would be public
earlier.
safety, right? And nuisance.
And I think that's what we kind of talked about today is the nuisance, but under the city ordinance, the nuisance, if they're requesting a waiver for the nuisance, they come to the chief of police, which, by the way, can be denied at any time, right? So I can approve it, but if we get numerous complaints, then we can end it. And then they always hire law enforcement officers. They're very, very picky about that. But like we said, it's on private property. Anytime that we've come to request for council approvals, and whenever they've closed a road, public property that would, interrupt
Yeah.
traffic flow.
In my mind, it's a normal business activity that is allowable under the existing law. So until it becomes a problem, just handle it administratively. Right? I mean, Eugene, Sonia.
I agree with you, but this was kind of short notice for this permit when it begins tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is what I was gonna say. They don't need us anyway, so might as well. Because if the form was completed on the 3rd, and it simply says to have it done 5 days before coming to us. So technically, it's gonna happen whether we vote on it or not.
Well, it wouldn't have to.
It wouldn't have to.
Well, they don't have to, but I'm sure James Gang is thinking that it
They're
is.
probably already
They
on the
already
process.
out
Yeah,
there.
and they're aware, and we have talked to the business owner about this. There is some miscommunication between the entity that's coming to do the carnival and the person that owns the business. But this is not the first time that's happened, and we're hoping that this would be the last time that happens. They did everything ahead of time. The only thing that they didn't do was get it on the agenda for you to consider. And that's what brought up this whole kind of last minute thing. Like, why is this going to the council to begin with? And
Right.
so
When a normal business, unless we're closing public roads, I mean, I think that should be approved. But as long as it's happening entirely on private space,
So
I
with
think
that
it's a
said,
fair question.
with that said, if we make that decision, do we just strike that from tonight's agenda completely?
I mean, you said we were doing this out of an abundance of caution. Of course, I would always say, what statute, what ordinance are you pointing to that required this to be?
we don't have one, but like I said, when I returned, this became an issue Saturday for the business owner who called me, and then when I got into the office on Monday, we asked some questions, and the best answer I got was that we've just always done it this way.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't come up with an ordinance or something to point to that says this is why we're doing that. But I said, if we've done it that way, let's go ahead and do that in the off chance that there is something on there.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we keep it on the agenda, approve it tonight out of an abundance of caution, and then y'all just make doubly sure that there's nothing that requires council approval going forward. And if it doesn't, we'll keep it in administrative action. As with anything, when it becomes a council problem, it becomes a problem, and we'll address it then. But it sounds like this is the same business, the James Gang, that's been doing these for years,
About
right?
3 or 4 years now, man.
And y'all are comfortable with their attention to safety, attention to nuisance issues.
Yes, we're going to continue to do just as we have. I just got back before I came here to do the inspection on them as far as life safety engineering. did the
None of
same
that's
thing.
going away if
None
we
of that
go
will
administrative.
change. So as far as we're concerned, the only thing that was holding up was the time frame and your approval.
Yeah.
From what I
So, I mean, it looks a lot like y'all are asking us to approve the opening, albeit temporary opening of a business that's entirely on private property. We don't do that for other businesses. I mean, Rainer, I know you just walked in, but do you have any thoughts on this, on the festival permits that are entirely on private space, private property? Okay.
Only thing I can say is I know even when it's been in the parking lot of
The shopping center.
old Big Lots,
We approved it then.
it's not a good response to say, well, I guess that's the way we've always done it. But as long as I can remember, that's the way their application has been considered. And I honestly don't know off the top of my head. There must be something in our ordinances that requires some type of, I don't know if I'd call it a parade permit, but something like that for this purpose. And I know what
Typically,
you're saying.
a parade would
when
be
it's
on a public street.
property.
Yeah.
Um,
Lynn, you have thoughts?
Turner, I don't know. I'd have to look at it. I haven't.
And I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of the special event information necessary for the licensing, but James Gang does have to come in and get a business license issued by us. And I want to say, in having a conversation, because this was like a week and a half ago when I had this conversation with Tracy, was that they had come in and they had presented everything, but we were waiting on council approval. So I don't know if there's something in there, maybe in the wording of the business license portion, that states that we need to have approval from you all for us to be able to issue them that.
But I guess the question is that language administrative language or is it an
council?
ordinance?
Yeah, so I'd have to go back and double check it, but I know at the point that I talked to her, she was waiting on council approval.
Yeah.
Was the conversation we
All right.
had.
Well,
So,
Yeah,
we'll keep it on the agenda tonight.
Yeah,
Approve it,
and-
and y'all find out.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that approach?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Doesn't sound like anybody's objects to this.
I don't object, but I want us to be consistent. So
I
it
agree.
doesn't appear that we're making special privileges for certain groups and, others,
No.
and not other
Mhm.
groups.
Yeah.
That's the precedent that needs to be set. It's fair.
I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that the distinction needs to be if it's on public property
Right.
versus
And once
private
you make that
property.
distinction, then we should be able to go forward
Exactly.
with the consistency.
Mhm.
I mean, I just think as a general practice, if something's entirely on private property, then I think then, from a council standpoint, that's between, the city administration and that business, just making sure they're doing otherwise lawful activities. All right. Then we'll have privilege of the floor, staff reports. We're just going to introduce a planning commission recommendation, and then the companion ordinance coming from the planning commission. So their recommendation is to approve the request. We'll have a public hearing on that in May. Then a resolution to accept the NFC grant outdoor fitness court. We talked about this recently, but go ahead and.
We did. So there's some functional outdoor fitness space that Blue Cross and Blue Shield partnered with the National Fitness Campaign to issue grants to construct. I think you all had an opportunity to go to that link and maybe saw some things in your packets. But Dothan, Huntsville, Prattville, Mobile, a lot of places in the state have them. And on one side, it looks a lot like what they call a box or a CrossFit type gym. Where they have lanes and certain equipment to do pull-ups or squats or lunges or whatever you want. And then on the other side, it's an activity space that people can conduct like yoga classes or Zumba or whatever they do in an outdoor setting. This gives us back some of the space that we cut from the rec center design when we were trying to right size that in the budget, that people can still use. It gets us $40,000 towards that goal. There are other ways for us to raise money in that. So when we made the application, we did get some funding there. But we may seek other partnerships as well to help reduce that cost. But we would like approval up to $150,000 match to accomplish both of those sides.
All right. Any questions on this? I know we've gotten some various emails on these also. No concerns. Okay. Moving on to the lease agreement with the First United Methodist Church. I believe this is very similar to our agreement with First Baptist.
It is. If at any point, they decide they would like the property to be private, they're responsible to pay us a prorated share of. So, we typically just use round numbers, but as an example, if it was $150,000 parking lot, 15 years, it would be reduced every year by $10,000. So
just a straight line.
Straight line. That's right.
All right. Any questions on that? I think this is we're just being consistent here, and we're continuing to improve public parking situation downtown. Authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Hannah Arundel. We spoke about this in strategic planning, so this has to do with the, engaging a firm to assist us with all of our options to improve our blighted properties, whether they be commercial, residential, et cetera, right?
That's correct.
Any questions on that? I know a few of us have heard this firm speak before. Authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Arnett, Mulder and Associates for the wayfinding plan. Anything to add to this that we hadn't already heard?
No, sir.
Any questions on the wayfinding? All right, now we're going to move to board appointments. So, which we went through this last meeting. So, if is everybody? I just want to make sure we get it, that everybody understands which ones that they've already agreed they're going to make an appointment. I mean, a nomination. Granted, to be clear, the nominations will be open to all of us to nominate. But I know that on the Enterprise City School Board, Greg, you were going to make a nomination, right? Of course, anybody else is free to make nominations. Airport Authority. Who said that? So Eugene, you're going to make a nomination for Greg, right? Then who was going to do the ID board?
Trying to remember. That was
somebody was going to nominate Rob Rhodes.
Me.
Greg, that was you.
Greg, all right.
I'm reading an industrial development. You said ID in my brain.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Connections.
I'm sorry. Incubator Advisory Committee, somebody was going to nominate Neil Brown. So Scotty's going to nominate Neil Brown. Mental Health Board. Sonia, were you going to nominate somebody to Mental Health Board?
Frank Page.
Who?
I think it's the Mental Health Board. Frank.
Yes.
Yeah, Frank Page.
Right?
Who's with
That's right. Page. Then the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So this is the seat 3, Steve Nagy. And then that was you, Sonia, right?
Yes.
Then seat 4, this is the one that was a little tricky. I'm going to nominate Chris Rogers for seat 4. He is currently in the supernumerary slot. So we're going to slide a supernumerary up to a permanent slot, seat 4. And then that'll create a vacancy in the supernumerary slot, which is seat 6 SN. And I'm going to nominate Jody Linton for that. So, Chris is already on the board. He's going to change seats. And then Jody's going to slide into that slot, or at least that's going to be my nomination. All right. The way we'll handle that is I'll open the floor to nominations. Anybody make their nominations that they wish. After those nominations are made, we'll close the nominations and we'll hold an election. So if there's multiple nominees, then I will just list those off and we'll each get one vote for each person. All right, so EAA events at Center Rise Municipal Airport for the Young Eagle Flight Rally. This is we've done this, I think, every year, right?
Yes, sir. We do this every year. It's not been an issue at the airport. They also have a rider policy for insurance purposes that names in the name of the city, and I think it's $1 million policy to cover us. So
Right.
we don't have any issues with that.
Okay. Any questions, concerns on the Young Eagle Flight Rally? Rainer, I guess my only request is that you put eyes on that insurance. Consider road closure request from Public Works.
Yes, sir. I've got two of them in front of you. One of them is one that we did actually last council meeting, that East College from Main to the alley. We ran into an issue where we were not able to perform that function during that week. And just for transparency, I'm bringing it back to you tonight.
Was that due to the weather or lack of material?
Due to the lack of someone being ill running the equipment. So
Just
the
a
key
manpower
member,
issue.
yeah, I just want to make sure that key person that laid the sewer was there while we laid that sewer line back across that road, to make sure we didn't open that road up and have an issue, because that is old sewer pipe through there. So we're asking for the full week. One thing I'd point out to you is the contractor that's doing phase 3B on paving, that's one of the last streets he's got to do is at East College. So he's got to mill and pave, not just the street, but those parking bays in front of like Milky Moo's and those places through there. So the contractors asked if we could close the street for the entire week while we're doing the sewer line replacement at the alley crossing. They'll go ahead and mill and get all the other end of the street done and ready. And then as soon as we get the sewer line replaced, they'll come right in and pave out to Main Street. So we'll have that whole thing done during that week. We'll get the utility replaced by Public Works and the.
So that confuses me. The request is from Main Street to the alley, which is just like where the old KMX building is, right?
It is. And I wish I'd sent that into Beverly earlier. The contractor came back to us and said, hey, if you would be willing to close the entire
So
East
do we need
College.
to change this request?
I would request, if it's possible, for us to close East College from Main Street to Edwards for the entire week. And that allows us to do the paving project and the sewer replacement through there.
Are the business owners aware of this?
Yeah, so I talked to Tammy. Did y'all get any feedback? Did y'all get any pushback? So no pushback. We did talk to Tammy and Mariah. They talked to the business owners through there. It's doing them together will really save the business owners time, in my opinion, because you've got to get that road paved. You got to get it milled and paved. We also got to do the sewer. So we're going to tackle both ends of the street at the exact same time. So it should not slow down the process at all. Hopefully we'll get it done quicker than the week, but I'd like to block out the entire week to 5 days just to make sure. So we'd start early Monday morning. We'll be done by close of business on Friday.
I mean, that would be my request, is if you can get it done quicker, let's do it.
We will do everything we can. But yeah, if we could change that one, please, sir. The other one that I've got is West College Street.
East College from Main Street. So as everybody, we're gonna change the agenda. So East College Street from Main Street to Edwards.
Main Street to Edwards, yes, sir.
For sewer repairs
And street repaving.
and street repaving. Okay,
I apologize for that.
sorry.
West College Street, we've got a large tree between South Jones Street and Kentucky Street that's got a lot of dead branches that keep falling into Main Street, and we'd like to get in there and trim that tree up, get some of those dead branches off. And because it overhangs most of West College, we'd like to close that down. We did for estimated 1 day closure, but we just said during the week, whenever we get the contractor there to do it, we're going to bring them in, leave, trim that tree back up, and see if that will help that tree survive for a few more years.
All right. Any concerns about that? All right, then we'll roll into the mayor's report and council member comments. Any other changes, deletions, additions? All right, that will be our agenda. back to our work session agenda. Jonathan and Leanne, y'all want to give us an update on our sales tax collections?
Should be pretty quick. I just asked Leanne if she could just kind of give you a quick update since we moved over to Alabama Department of Revenue from Avenue, just kind of how that process is going and if we've had any issues with it. So, Leanne.
So I think I briefed you all a little bit last council meeting. Everything so far has been going well. I think we are at the point of being able to close things out with Avenue and get our final. We've been working back and forth with them to get our final reports and data transferred over to us so that we've got all of our historical information available to us there. We did have a couple people from ADOR come down a week and a half ago and went over some training stuff with Tracy and myself and had really good conversations with them. We have, now that we've got a month's worth of data in the system, and we can look around in there. We can get in on our reports and see how those things are, the information from the month is filtering into us. It's looking really good. We did still have a few taxpayers last month who filed through Avenue. So moving forward in the month of April for sales that were made in March, all of those returns will now be filed through the Department of Revenue. And, you know, once again, we have had a great working relationship with the state. They have been extremely helpful to us in getting things set up and getting things organized. They have communicated and been very responsive to our requests and our need for information, and they have been really great in working with our taxpayers and our business owners here in town to help them out and get them to make sure that they're in the right place and getting the returns filed on time. So again, if we're continuing to answer questions, but I think things have gone really well. We will continue to answer questions, so will the state, and if our business owners or taxpayers have any issues, that they can always reach out to us. They can reach out to the state. They can check our website. We'll be happy to get them to the right place. But I think for the next month, everything should be fully over to the ADOR, and things are going well. So,
any questions? Has anybody gotten any negative feedback or?
Good. Thanks.
All right. We set aside some time for some project updates. As you all know, we've got a lot of construction going on in, as far as city projects go. So, Jonathan, I think you and Barry were going to.
Yes, sir. And looking at the time, too, I did want to make a request, if we could, to go into executive session on that economic development project.
I've got it on my agenda here.
Okay. You want a project update first?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Barry?
If you think we can fit both in. Because we could move this to staff reports if you want. Okay.
I'll run through it from memory just to give you a quick update of what we got going on. The rec center is on schedule and going well. We made some minor changes to the civil drawings last week. Doesn't change the alignment from what the public will see, but we changed some grading to help with some storm drainage stuff and to help not shed so much water onto the LDOT right away. So that was approved last week by staff, and that's gone back up to LDOT for final approval. So that project is rolling well. They're getting down to the details. They're picking colors of carpet material and paint and exterior. So that stuff is nice. A lot of the utilities, as far as water and sewer, are getting close to being completed, installed on that. And if you've been out there, most of the grades, rough grading is being done, and you're starting to see them put some rock down for where the asphalt will be going. So
it's all concrete trucks every day.
It is. They're going to be pouring a lot of concrete over the next couple of months, which is why we thought it was a good idea with the maintenance building. While we've got a huge metal construction company there setting up, if we can get a good price from them on doing that maintenance building for Parks and Rec on the backside, they'll have forms and concrete trucks and steel erectors there. So hopefully that price will come back good. Hopefully I'll have something back from them next week on that. So I'll have for your next council meeting. So the rec center is going well. The PV Park Phase 1 project, Glenn could give an update, but I drove out there early this week. If you've been out there, they got a lot of the rough grading done on the side. It looks really impressive. Looks so much different from what it was before. So you start to see the ball fields in the way they're terraced. I expect to see the same thing in Phase 2. We'll have a somewhat of a terraced effect as well on the Phase 2, the existing PV Park project. And you executed a agreement task order for Poly Engineering to finish the design on the Phase 2, the existing PV Park. So I saw today a two-dimensional anyway of the layout of that. So I'm hopeful to get those drawings in hand so that we can go out to bid to meet that Q2 goal. That's the PV Park one. I met with the consultant for the TAP grant for the sidewalks yesterday and reviewed his 90% set of drawings that's been submitted to AlDOT, and he's waiting for their final comments. As soon as he gets their comments done, they'll go out for bid. So the Daleville Avenue sidewalk project hopefully will go to bid in Q2 and get ready to go. So that's 100% construction-wise, at least from where it stops. I forget the name of that street, all the way up to Weeda Street was approved under the construction. They paid for all the construction, and the city picked up a portion from Weeda out to the bypass. So that project is moving. We gave you a quick update about the sidewalk projects. Those projects are being advertised now for a contractor to do the sidewalk rehab project in town. So that one is going well. We reviewed the design drawings for the hangar at the airport and gave comments back to the consultant last week. So it is advertising currently right now, and we're expecting bids on May the 5th on that project. So that's going well. I'm trying to think what other projects we have.
Pickleball and City Hall.
So pickleball, we went through the 90% set of plans last week, and today went through it with Parks and Rec. I've got to get water comments back to the architect, and we have a conference call tomorrow with him to go through the 90% drawings. He's expecting to go advertising on that project in the next 2 weeks and having bids on that sometime in May. So ahead of schedule on the pickleball courts. The current plan is master plan for 16 courts, but Phase 1 is 8 courts. So 8 courts about where the tennis court complex is now at the college, and we're doing a gravel parking lot out front so people have a nice place to park out there. But it will look it won't be all hard surfaces. You won't be parking on asphalt and concrete, and so it should have a nice soft feel to that. Those courts we got in the bid to get bid prices on lighting for those courts as well, so we can play daytime and nighttime out there. We'll see how the bid prices come back on that for your review. I know I'm missing a few.
City Hall.
I did talk to the contractor, which is Whaley, about an alternate way of bidding that project, knowing that we have the Public Building Authority option at hand, and reaching out possibly to another couple of contractors to get prices from them as well. Hopefully to come forward with a plan to get that back closer to budget, something that we can get some cost savings, get it closer to what we had budgeted for City Hall. The plan has not changed as far as what we want to do with City Hall. The floor plan hasn't changed. We did look at a way to reduce the number of phases down from 6 or 7 phases down to 2. And we think we found a way to make that work. And so doing it in 2 phases, we give them about 70% of the building floor plan to do all their work at one time. So that should, number one, it's going to save time on the project. But number 2, it should save us money because they're not engaging a contractor like a demo contractor, and that guy gets done and they bring electrical and HVAC and plumbing, and then all those people have to leave, and then we do the next phase and they just engage them. So hopefully we give them in 2 phases. That'll save us time. We'll get the City Hall renovations done quicker, but also help us on the capital cost for the project as well. So I did receive yesterday a proposal from Whaley for something alternate of that, and I'm just starting to review that document to see what that looks like. But hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have that, at least for Jonathan and I in the mayor's office to staff to look at that and see if that proposal makes sense or not. The City Hall paving project 3A was they did the review for all the streets on 3A, and Glenn went through with Shannon and wrote those streets and have a punch list item for 3A. So 3A is relatively substantially complete with some punch list items. We're down to just a handful of streets, 3 or 4 streets on 3B, So East College being one of those. So we'll get that. If y'all vote for that tonight for that closure, hopefully we'll have that project wrapped up here in the next 30 days. Have 3B complete, and then we'll work on punch list items with the contractor.
And is the church parking lot going to be? They're going to do that part of this mobilization?
Yes, sir. The plan was to have that church parking lot finished this week. They replaced some unsuitable soils on the backside closer to Edward Street last week, and then this rain came in there. So pending the rain hasn't messed them up, they should have that parking lot complete this week by Friday and open for Easter Sunday. That was the plan.
Awesome.
So 3B will be complete. We'll be waiting on the water department to finish their phase 3 water project to get those water lines replaced, and then we'll be looking at those streets that were a low PCI that were available in the water department's phase 3 project for a possible phase 4 in the future. Maybe a next year type.
So we currently do not have a phase 4.
With this project 3B, we've gotten all the streets that were low risk that have PCI less than about 40 or 45. We got all the streets done. Now there's still some streets that are low PCIs, but they have high risk of utility breakage. So we're working with the water department to get those risks mitigated, so we can keep on some kind of reoccurring paving project to get the rest of the streets done. We know there's some low PCI streets that need to be done, but like we said, we don't want to go in there and pave a street and know that we have 20 breaks over the next couple of years.
Right.
To patch.
Do we know what the total number of streets left? I mean, I don't need it tonight.
I don't, but
okay.
I've got it on my computer, and I'll be glad to give you an update next council meeting, just kind of where we stand.
Yeah, I would like to see. Obviously, we're not going to get out and ride the streets between now and then, but you know which ones have been paved. We know what the PCI was a few years ago, and I think y'all had a degradation prediction. So I would like to see a rough update of where we're at on.
Be glad. I'll do that next council meeting during your work session if that'd be fine with you, or during council meeting. But I'll give you an update of what we've done to date and kind of here's what's left, and I can have that. It's pretty much pulled together. I'll put it in a presentation format for you.
And then I guess we can have kind of an overall PCI average, both weighted by just number of streets and then maybe by mile of streets.
I can.
Which I think you've always said are kind of work out equally.
It's kind of weird. They're almost the exact same, which I never would have thought. You do it by a weighted average by the PCI times the mileage, and then do an average that way.
We paved some long streets.
We did. It for whatever reason, it's come out about the same within like 5 points left or right. So really close, but I'll be glad to give you an update for that at next council meeting.
Okay.
The only other thing I want to mention to you is we're working on a helipad at the airport. Not that that's something that you've heard a lot about, but PHI, that's flying the medical vac helicopter, they are extremely busy. They've got a second helicopter on the airfield, and so they're parking one in their hangar, and they're also got one on the ramp. So we have approval now from the FAA to build a helipad on the end closest to the VOR by the new terminal building, and we're going to do that in-house with staff, with public works staff. So we'll be building them a helipad so they can park their helicopter out there and tie that down. So that's another project that we're currently working on. I was excited to get the word back that we got that approved by the FAA.
And the airport building, I know we talked about earlier, the hangar out of the airport.
Yes, sir.
Spec hangar. What did we say? It'll be under construction this quarter?
So the bids on that is May 5th. So we'll have a pre-bid about 2 weeks earlier than that. I don't remember that date off the top of my head. It was a 20-something. Yeah. But we'll receive bids on the May 5th, and pending that's good, we'll make it in the second council meeting for May for y'all's review and approval of that contract for the contractor. As soon as we get that done, I'd like to go ahead and lock in that so he can go ahead and order the materials he will need. The longest lead time right now we're finding is the big door, because that hangar is 130 feet wide, so the door is roughly about 100 feet wide, the door, and they're saying close to 6 months for a door to get fabricated and get it shipped to site. So the earlier we get that awarded, the sooner that hangar is going to be completed, because that's going to probably be the longest lead time in the critical path of that construction project.
We leave any projects out?
A couple of things going on.
Yeah, just a few things.
All
right, sounds good.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan, you got anything to add?
Thank you.
All right, last item on our work session agenda is a request from Mr. Tullos to go into executive session regarding economic development. Any other issues, just economic development? All right, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session regarding economic development.
So moved.
Second.
All right, with motion and second, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I expect this will take about 25 minutes or so. We'll come back out, and no further business discussed in the work session, but we will adjourn the work session and reconvene in our regular meeting at 6 p.m. We'll see y'all in a minute.
When I came in, I was worried about fire. When it came like half the window was back, it was coming out.
Look up, I get an extra pin popping in my front. I got 4 pins somehow.
This is enough. Good, same thing. She coming in twice, same thing.
They just gonna blast everything like they're Well, that's what you've been hearing all these complaints about. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all council members are present. Please stand with me for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Do we have Tiffany Looper here from Church with a U? Oh, there she is.
Father, thank you so much for the people who are in this room today. Thank you for our city officials. Thank you for how they lead our city. Thank you for the great city of Enterprise. And I just pray over this meeting tonight that you will be in the midst of it, Father, that you will guide people's hearts and their minds, and just let it be a peaceful conversation tonight. Let the decisions be made to glorify you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. All right, Council, you should have the agenda in your packet in front of you that we discussed in the prior work session. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as submitted with one minor change, that being the road closure request. We're going to change that from East College Street from Main Street to Edwards for sewer repairs and street repaving. That small little change, instead of to the alley, to Edwards, and we're adding street repaving to the agenda item. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the City Council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the City Council. I now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Is there any discussion? Let the record show that I'll be abstaining from voting because a conflict with accounts payable B. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now consider a request to address the council regarding a permit request from O'Neill Boswell and Spring Festival. Is Mr. Boswell here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, if you could come forward and speak in the microphone.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Boswell and I has long-standing tradition that we run the carnival up at the dealership, and all these proceeds go to our veteran service organizations. We did get a little bit behind on what the requirements were, and that definitely falls on this guy right here. So we have used the same people every single year for this event, and so they've been vetted over and over again, same location, exact same setup. So we've done this over and over again. We have a pretty good system in place, and so I don't see any reason to be concerned or issues. But we are late at this, and I apologize for that.
Any questions regarding the permit request? Chief Davis, Chief Moore, y'all both gave us your approval in prior work session. Any additional comments? All right. I will entertain a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
Second?
All right, a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we now have the time of the meeting called Privilege of the Floor. This allows members of the public who are present here this evening 3 minutes to address the council. Is there anyone here that wishes to take privilege of the floor? Mr. Bench? Could tell us who you are and where you live.
Live on 113 Heron Creek Drive. 2 issues tonight. One, I'd like to thank the city's workforce for keeping good cleanliness on Apache Drive lately. They had a wave of apparently evictions in there, and there was piles of mattresses and furniture all magically disappeared. So very happy to see that. And a couple of the residents who live in that area have complimented the city for that.
Good.
The other issue is, and I spoke to Mr. Mott earlier, is about tires, used tires laying around the streets. And want to put a little emphasis on that for the city. Mr. Mott's already said he's come up with a plan to get it fixed, but I just want to bring it to y'all's attention. As Pierce Street, there's a pile of about 15 tires there, and then Heron Creek, Choctaw, and Morgan Lane are 5 or 6, 1 or 2. So we'd appreciate if we could get those picked up. The responsible citizens have failed to exercise good judgment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to take privilege of the floor this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. Any additional staff reports? We good? All right, moving on to old business. There is no old business this evening, so we'll move straight to new business. We'll now introduce the Planning Commission recommendation. I introduce for the record a recommendation from the Enterprise Planning Commission to approve the following request for the rezone of property. A request by GG&K LLC for the rezoning of 0.57 acres of land from R100 Residential District to R65 Residential District located at 105 Smith Drive. Additionally, I'll introduce ordinance 040423 regarding the GG&K LLC rezone. So I introduce ordinance 040423 providing for the rezone of 0.57 acres of land owned by GG&K LLC from R100 Residential District to R65 Residential District located at 105 Smith Drive. I call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for May 2nd, 2023. There'll be no action taken on that issue tonight. All right, we'll now review and consider Resolution 040423 regarding the acceptance of the NFC grant for outdoor fitness court. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 040423 providing to accept a $40,000 National Fitness Campaign grant to construct an outdoor fitness court at the new Recreation and Aquatic Center and further authorize the city's match of $150,000. Do I hear a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 040423. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now consider authorizing the mayor to execute the lease agreement for the First Baptist Church parking lot. I call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a lease agreement between the City of Enterprise and First United Methodist Church related to the lot behind Dobbs Eye Clinic. The landlord is charging no rent. The lease includes buyout provisions such that the landlord would pay funds to help defray city improvement costs expended if the landlord terminates the lease. all according to the lease. Do I hear a motion to approve this authorization?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Hand Arundel Harrison Sale LLC regarding community development. I call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Hand Arundel Harrison Sale LLC for legal services associated with the city's proposed community development project.
So
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this authorization. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Arnett, Muldrow and Associates Limited for a wayfinding plan. So I call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Arnett, Muldrow and Associates Ltd. not to exceed $19,500 for services related to the development of a vehicular wayfinding plan for the city of Enterprise. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this authorization. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment for the Enterprise City School Board. I call for nominations to the Enterprise City School Board Seat 3 for a 5-year term in accordance with Section 1611.3 of the Code of Alabama, commencing on the date of the next regular meeting of the board in June of this year. I'll now open those nominations.
I'd like to nominate Keith Wood for Enterprise City School Board Seat 3.
All right, any further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, I'll close nominations. And do I hear a motion to hold an election for Seat 3, considering the nomination of Keith Wood?
So moved.
Second.
All right, with a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of Keith Wood say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment to the Airport Authority. I call for nominations to the Airport Authority Seat 2 for a 6-year term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2029. Those nominations are now open.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Greg Patrick.
All right, Greg Paget. Do I hear any further nominations? All right, hearing none, I'll close those nominations and entertain a motion for the appointment of Greg Paget to the Airport Authority Seat 2.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of Greg Paget say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment to the Industrial Development Board. I call for nominations to the Industrial Development Board, Seat 1, for a 6-year term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2029. Those nominations are now open.
I'd like to nominate Rob Rhodes to the Industrial Development Board, Seat 1.
All right, are there any further nominations? Hearing none, we'll close nominations. I'll entertain a motion to elect Rob Rhodes to Seat 1 of the Industrial Development Board. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of Rob Rhodes for the Industrial Development Board say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment to the Incubator Advisory Committee. I call for nominations to the Incubator Advisory Committee, Seat 2, for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2027. Those nominations are now open. Do I hear any nominations?
Mr. President, I would like to nominate Mr. Neil Brown, the Incubator Advisory Committee, Seat 2.
All right, are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I'll close those nominations and entertain a motion to elect Neil Brown to the Incubator Advisory Committee, Seat 2.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment to the Mental Health Board. I call for nominations to the Mental Health Board, Seat 2, for a 6-year term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2029. We'll now open those nominations. Are there any?
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Frank Page for the Mental Health Board, seat 2.
All right. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I'll now close those nominations and entertain a motion to elect Frank Page to the Mental Health Board, seat 2.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment for the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I call for nominations to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 3, for a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2026. Those nominations are now open.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Steve Nagy for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 3.
All right, are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I'll close those nominations and entertain a motion to elect Steve Nagy to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 3.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We now consider a board appointment to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I call for nominations to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 4, for a 3-year term beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2026. Those nominations are now open. Do we hear any nominations? I would like to nominate Chris Rogers to that slot in seat 4 of the Zoning Board of Adjustments. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close those nominations and I'll entertain a motion to elect Chris Rogers to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 4.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a board appointment to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I call for nominations to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 6SN, meaning supernumerary, to fill the unexpired term of Christopher Rogers, who just was taken out of that seat, and that'll end June 30th, 2024. Are there any nominations? I would like to nominate Jody Linton to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 6SN. Are there any other nominations? All right, we'll close the nominations and entertain a motion to elect Jody Linton to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 6SN. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider a request to hold EAA events for the Enterprise Municipal Airport. I introduce and call for consideration of a request on behalf of EAA Chapter 351 to hold the following events at the Enterprise Municipal Airport. The Young Eagle Flight Rally on Saturday, April 15, 2023, with a rain date of April 22, 2023, and the EAA Learn to Fly event on Saturday, May 20th, 2023. Do I hear a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider 2 road closure requests from Public Works. I introduce and call for consideration of a request from City Engineering Public Works Director Barry Mott to temporarily close the following streets on April 10th through 14th, 2023 for maintenance and repairs. That is East College Street from Main Street to Edwards for sewer repairs and street resurfacing. This was previously approved by the council but amended due to a delay in the repair of the project. And then also West College Street from South Jones Street to Kentucky Street for tree trimming. The estimated 1-day closure with a date unknown. Do I hear a motion to approve this request?
So move.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the request. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor, you have a report for us?
Thank you, Mr. President. City of Enterprise is hosting the upcoming quarterly meeting in Fort Rucker Wiregrass Chapter Association, United States Army, next Tuesday, April 11th. Major General Michael McCurry will be the guest speaker. Business owners, associated civic club members, church leaders, and local residents are encouraged to attend. Tickets are available to purchase through AUSA. We had a great turnout downtown for the annual spring festival at the monument. Thank you to our Main Street and tourism department, as well as many volunteers who made this event such a success. Also, in the downtown, applications are now open for those who would like to utilize the incubator. The bright blue refurbished shipping container will allow up and coming businesses to try their hand at a brick and mortar location. Visit our website to apply. We care about the safety of those all over our city, especially downtown. Don't forget that those barricades are in place for a reason. Pedestrians are reminded to use the sidewalk and only cross Main Street at the designated crosswalk. Speaking of safety, the fire department will host its biennial smoke detector blitz on April 15th. The goal is to have a working smoke detector in every home and enterprise. Firefighters and certain volunteers will be going door to door in specific neighborhoods to make sure our residents are protected. You can also stop by the Central Fire Station to get a free smoke detector. Parks and recreation, baseball and softball season is in full swing. Today is the start of the season with a record number of participants. I have a few key dates I'd like to point out. Every Saturday in April, join our local historians and Enterprise High School AP students for a 1 hour walking tour downtown. Tours start in front of the Raw. To register, contact our tourism department. The 39th all-in-car credit union sale, truck, RV, and boat sale is set for April 20th through the 22nd at the Enterprise Civic Center. Well, we will block party in downtown Enterprise on May 5th. Festival in the park is set for May 6th. Spring has sprung and there are lots of wonderful Easter celebrations and egg hunts going on this weekend. I would like to wish each and every one of you a blessed Easter. May we all remember that this is the season of hope and new life. Finally, remind us to stay up to date with what's happening in our city by visiting our website and following us on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Rich?
Thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank our staff for the hard work to ensure that we stay on task with our goal setting and meeting our goals. It's much appreciated. Thanks.
Mr. Goolsby?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight too, and I was really happy with our work session when we went over our first quarter goals for 2023. All of them are on the schedule except for one, but I was very happy with the outcome, and thank you to all our city employees who were involved with the Spring Festival. I hear it was a big success, and thank you everybody for coming.
Mr. Paget?
I'd just like to echo what's already been said. Thank you so much to the city staff that's helping us reach all of our goals that we've set, and excited about the progress.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for all our citizens online watching. Thank you, staff. Outstanding work session, working on our Q2 goals and seeing what we can do for our city. One thing I like to remind everybody is, you know, we've had a couple of minor tornadoes go through. I say a tornado is really not minor, but is your family's disaster plan up to date? Do you have your go bags? Do you have your water? It's not if, but when. But you need to be prepared and not wait till the last moment. And if you have any questions, contact me. I'll fill you full of a lot of information on disaster preparedness. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank everybody. Ditto what everybody said. Certainly thank department heads and all of your staff for your diligent hard work on accomplishing our goals. It's really exciting to see what all is getting accomplished. We've got a plan and we're working it. We're staying on task. Mr. Bench, as always, thank you for bringing us our reminders of what we've been doing on. And but hey, you give credit when credit's due. I appreciate you thanking us for when a job's well done too. So thank you very much, and thank everybody else for coming. And we are adjourned.
What time is that luncheon? Oh yeah, the luncheon next Tuesday, the 11th.
But we got here at 4 o'clock, so.